everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hoop Addicts Anonymous. It's your boy Will. You can find me on X at 33_problems, on Instagram at thatguyprior33. Today we're going to start a new series, one that's near and dear to my heart. It's called For the Love of the Game. This is part one of that series, and with me I have a special guest, my boy. Everybody, welcome to the Hoop Addicts family. Frank Scott, thank you,
What
boy.
up, my brother? Appreciate you.
So I'm gonna just get right into it. Tell the people a little bit about yourself, your background, where you come from, and then how did you get introduced to the game of basketball, and when did you first fall in love with basketball?
So like he said, my name is Frank. You can find me on Instagram at struggledmade_35. That's STRUGGLED made 35_35. A little bit about my background. I'm from East Oakland. I grew up in the 30s, 35th to be specific. I traveled around a lot. Once I got towards the high school level, I traveled around a lot just because there was a lot of stuff going on in my neighborhood. A lot of traumas. Grew up with a single mom, 5 boys, and things got stressful for me. So I decided to kind of separate myself from that environment and go further my education, because I knew what it was that I wanted to do in life, just not on that basketball, spectrum, but just in life in general. I just wanted to be a good person.
Right.
And so with that caused me to separate and move, relocate, and then come back later on in life. Yep.
Okay. And then when can you honestly say that you first fell in love with the game of basketball?
I say about 13. Mm-hmm. So I lived on a street where it was a dead end, but it was a bunch of youth all the way around. And so a lot of my friends that I have still to this day, and even some of my close friends that's considered family to me right now, we all used to play different sports in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We had one friend that was the older guy, and he was from El Salvador. He's from El Salvador.
Okay.
And he introduced us to soccer. And so from that point on, we would just be playing soccer and football. Mm-hmm. And then we started to go to the parks and play basketball a lot. So we were just doing different sports, but the one that really stuck was hoop. Right. So me and my cousin Nate, we used to go back and forth all the time. At that time, he was a lot better than me. He actually had the experience. He went to Warriors camps and stuff like that. Okay. He come from a basketball background. His uncle is an NBA agent, and all that stuff. So he had the opportunities and different things where he can go and do that type of stuff. And he was from the Dub, so he was always, at the Manzanita Center hooping and stuff like that. And he would always invite me. Mm-hmm. And so from that point on, it just became a thing. And I'm like, all right, I think I like doing this. And then once I realized it was certain things, I was bigger than most kids when I was younger. So my cousin would always make me play in the post. And so I think from that point on, that's when I felt like I was a big man. So it stuck with me for a long time. And so I started playing AAU with Coach Ham. His real name is Ricky Logan. But he started an AAU team here in the Bay called DBC, him and Coach John.
Okay.
They started a basketball club called DBC, Defensive Ball Club.
Okay.
And so that was pretty much an avenue to give an opportunity to those kids who actually had some type of skill set but didn't have the money to go hoop to these other programs that they had that costed way more money.
Yeah.
So we played a low circuit, but we always got our notoriety around what we were doing because we were all kids that came from the streets or came from certain environments. And with John and Ham, they were street dudes.
Yeah.
He grew up in Sobrani, and so he had this tough skin about him, and he always really just tested us all the time. So he would make us play adults all the time. Mm-hmm. And so from that point on, we were playing people that was at Dewey, stuff like that. He would set up scrimmages for just continuation school.
Right. I was up there with some moves.
Yeah. And so after that, we were playing the little leagues at Cesar Chavez, and we would always win it. But then they started to get on the point where they, now how they do, if they feel like that kid is just so advanced, we need to see birth certificate. We need to see proof of age. And we would always bring it, but I think at the end of the day, we just got tired of getting harassed about it. Yeah. And so that's when he would set those scrimmages up, and we would just hoop from that point on. And then that point on, it was just it was weird because I always wanted to play high school ball, And the way that my life was set up, it didn't work out that way. Like I started playing basketball early, but I didn't really get the real exposure that I wanted to. Like a lot of my friends, like Chew and a couple of other my friends, Stephanie, like they all stayed back and they played in the OAL, and like they always wanted to come back and play in the OAL. But like I felt like with me coming back to the town, it was just such a danger, not from the streets, but just from like my mom's situation. Like my mom was abused, and so I didn't really have the mental capacity to deal with it because I'm dealing with my brother's emotions and trying to figure out how to navigate through those situations. So, and I was always taught never run away from your problems, but that was just one problem that I always ran from. And so with that being said, it was little hiccups here and there during high school and stuff, so when I came back, it was college, and then I took my college route, and then, I was going to walk on at UCB. And so with that being said, I ended up getting sick. And so
that's what I wanted to talk about next. So part of the reason why I did For the Love of the Game is just because I know, at least for me, myself, it takes a lot sometimes, to keep going, especially with this hoop stuff. Like sometimes you really just don't have it. And with your story that you're about to, we're going to tap into and go into next, I think the average person probably would have tapped out, a long time ago. So I just want to kind of talk about what you were going to talk about with the sickness, and you kind of just explain it real quick, and, just kind of give people a background information about how that happened, what happened, and then for you to even get past all that and find that love for the game again and start again, getting your body back in shape. Like, just tell people like what that experience was like for you.
Okay, so for one, basketball was always the number one getaway through my life, even as a youngin'. I would stay at the courts till late night with my cousin Nate, and we would just hoop all night long. That was kind of like my getaway. But to piggyback off what you were saying as far as what happened, so I was going to try to walk on. I knew I had the skill set. I just didn't get the looks that I wanted when I was in high school. So once I started to do like little scrimmages here and there, I started to get like these weird symptoms, like one that I felt like I was super sick, like I had a flu or something. And so, like most, African Americans, we don't go check on our bodies and see what's wrong. Like we just figured we could self-heal ourselves all the time. But this was just something that was so persistent and consistent, it wouldn't go away. And each day, certain things started happening. Like the next day, it was like a crazy nosebleed, and then a lot of throwing up and stuff like that. And like at the time, I was dealing with my child's mother, and so we had separated or whatever. Like we had broke up, and I was just kind of like doing my own thing. And so when I was in the midst of like dating this girl, I would go to her house and I would be sick. And she like, "You sure you good? Like you good?" But like her mom was like a super spiritual person, and she's like, it got so bad to the point where she was just like praying over my body because she felt like I wasn't gonna make it. Yeah. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because I ended up going home the next day, and that's when that nosebleed transpired. I was working for Bayfair Mall at the time, and I was doing security. So I was on the little Segway, like that Segway you see on Mall Cop. Mall Cop. So, I was riding on that, and that was like stopping the nosebleed because the air. But then when I stopped, it started dripping again. So I was the opener of the mall, so I would have to be there at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, And so I had to wait for my manager to come in. And so fast forward to him coming in, I told him like I can't eat anything, like I'm throwing up. It's black, black stuff in my stool. I gotta go. Right. He like, all right, you could go, So I went home and tried to rest it off. As we all know, blood goes down your stomach a lot when your nose is bleeding. If you're not tilting your head back or leaning over, like it's gonna continue bleeding. So a lot of that was in my stomach to the point where I was laying in bed and I got super nauseous. So I'm like, let me go throw up. And before I could even open the door to get out, to go throw up in the bathroom, I had threw up all over the place, and it was just blood everywhere. It looked like a murder scene. Like it was terrible. It was terrible. So from that point on, I was like, hey, I gotta go to the hospital, and we just gotta live with the consequences.
Right.
I went in. The doctor said my blood pressure was like 200 over like 150.
Oh wow.
Like, so at that point, I was damn near like in stroke mode.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You should have been the cop though.
And so he was like, you know, we're gonna run some tests, see what's going on right now. We'll get you some blood pressure pills to try to calm that blood pressure down.
Right.
But in the meantime, just, you know, sit tight. And all that was going through my mind at the time was like my daughter, and then like wondering if I'm still gonna be able to hoop because you know, like
it's a lot going on.
Once a baller, always a baller. And like, you know, he came back like maybe an hour or two later. He was like, you know, you have any parents or anything that needs, you know, you want here? And I'm just like, why? Like, what's the deal?
Right.
And so he was just like, you know, it's very unfortunate for somebody your age, you know what I mean, to go through what, you know, what you're going through. And I'm just like, what is this I'm going through? Like, what am I going through?
Right.
And so he was like, we want to start the process of dialysis. I didn't know what dialysis was at the time.
How old were you at the time?
21. Okay. Yeah.
And then you said your daughter. So how old was your daughter?
So she was born in 2009.
Okay. So this was before you got sick? You had your daughter?
Yeah, she was like maybe 2 when this happened.
Okay. And then, so now you're sick, plus a kid, and Hoop Dreams is on the line. Okay, now continue.
And so with that being said, I was like, okay, we're gonna go do dialysis, whatever, I'll be done.
Right.
You know. But then when I realized that they took me into surgery and they put a catheter down my chest that goes to the heart. And that was their way of being able to get the treatment started early, because there was also another surgery that needed to be had on my forearm, which is called a fistula. And it's pretty much them making an incision by your wrist, and it's connecting the vein and the artery together to make that pulsate the blood flow higher in your arm, which makes the vein protrude more. It's all natural. But with that being said, dialysis is a thing that flushes out toxins out of your body and cleans your blood and puts it back in at the same time. Right. So it's pulling and cleaning.
Like washing it off.
Your body's going through a wash. Yeah. And so.
And how many times would you have to do dialysis, like per week? At this time?
So 3 times a week, 4 hours.
Each time? Okay.
And so with that comes with just going to the clinic. And so I was scheduled at the dialysis clinic in Eastmont. And so I still really didn't know what was really happening, because again, I didn't have, you know, my parents in my life to the point where they're asking questions and trying to figure it out for me. I'm just going through the motions alone. So I think that shaped my ambition and my desire to do a lot of the things that I'm doing right now. And so with that came a lot of traumatic experiences, you know, experiencing that, you know, you're in this room, this big room where there's people sitting directly across from you. And it's like a whole row, like how we sitting. And then it's another whole row across from you. And you're the only person that's your age in there. Everybody's in their 50s and 60s and so on and so on.
That was taxing on your mind.
Yeah. And
seeing that, at that age. Yeah.
And it's so, you know, I would see people's machines beeping off, and sometimes, you know, depending on how the blood flow is, how they cannulate you, it could be bouncing off the nerve, and it could make the alarm go off so they can come adjust it. Or some people's blood pressure was dropping beyond normal numbers, and you know, you can faint, pass out, or you can die. You know what I mean? So I've seen a lot of different people like go to the scale to weigh themselves, because they weigh you when you come in to see how much your dry weight is. Let's say you weigh 220, right? You get on there, you 225 within the 2-day span. That means you have like 5 pounds of fluid on you that needs to be pulled off, because you're over your body weight. And so with that comes a fluid restriction. So if you come in 5 over, that means they have to pull more, and then it's harder on the body. if it's too much fluid, it can travel up to your lungs. You can get edema, which is like, pockets of fluid in your ankles and legs and stuff like that. You ever put on a sock and when you took off the sock, there's a bulge of your skin, your fat, like it's been cutting your circulation off? That's kind of like what edema is. You can touch it and feel the fluid.
Oh, that's terrible.
And so, with that being said, I always would be over because I had to get used to learning how not to drink so much fluid. And it was just traumatic, man. Like the system, man, going through having regular like Medi-Cal. You got one social worker that's working with hundreds of people that go to the clinic because there's different shifts. So you got the 5 a.m., the 9, and then you got the afternoon. And the afternoon is like the last shift. And I always had the early morning shift, but this person is doing everything for everybody. And so when I was trying to at that point I had to understand that I have to get the information because I'm not getting everything that I need.
Right.
And so one of my good friends, his son had got killed. And so when his son got killed, all he could do was think about me. And he said, you know what? I think that I would love to donate my son's organs to him.
Oh, wow.
So he called me and said, I got these doctors that's going to call you and see if you are a match for my son's kidneys before we send him off, And so when he did that, they gave me a call and said that we can't do it because you're not on the kidney transplant list. But apparently, from what my understanding of knowledge of it is that if I know you or you somebody that I know and I want to donate a kidney to you, you should be able to do that.
Right.
But I don't know what happened. I never questioned it too much. I couldn't get it. So what I did was I did go to the social worker and ask him, why am I not on the kidney transplant list?
Right.
And so there was no real answer. So I called UCSF myself and I said, how do I get on this list? How do I get tested to do this and do this? They like, so here's this pamphlet. We'll send you in the mail. We'll schedule you an appointment. You come in. It's a whole meeting giving you a rundown about kidney transplantation, what you're going through right now and how the list goes. So pretty much with those lists, there's a certain wait period for each person. But if you have a sickness, let's say you got like type 1 diabetes or something that's causing your kidney to always be affected, more than likely, or you're 60 plus and you having these situations, more than likely those situations are going to reoccur. Like, so they try to give people who are the most healthy and had hiccups health-wise that can use the kidney and bounce back and be okay, and then give them later. Okay. You know what I mean? So I spent time.
How long did it take before you actually got a kidney?
So I did dialysis for 7 years. So I started in like 2011, and I didn't get a kidney until October 22nd of 2017.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then you get the kidney, now you're in recovery, and you're basically, because I remember around that time, that's around the time we met. So I remember seeing you like fine one day, and then next day you like, pale, not looking like yourself, like you didn't have a beard. You wasn't growing no hair. Like,
well, I was still young.
Yeah, but still, like it was like a weird transition for me, like as a friend on the outside looking in, because I just remember you looking like a shell of yourself. And then I remember you having the surgery, you know what I mean? And then you were in recovery. And then I remember you started being like, I think I could come back, but I just need to take my time. You know what I mean? So talk about that determination and desire to get back hooping after everything you went through with that kidney situation.
So I'm going to take a step back from that because there was a big part that you missed right there. So when I first met you, I was playing ABA on dialysis.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nobody knew. All they knew was my skin got super dark, and I was skinny.
Had that nosebleed in Vegas.
And I was skinny. And so, I think at the time when I met you, you were on the opposite team, And I always knew you as the preacher boy because
I was in church.
people don't know he was heavily in church, and
Pastor
like
Will.
he would always have like super positive things to say. And I think when we were around each other, the energy was different because he brought a lot of balance and a lot of things that he said because he was actively in the church and I wasn't. I think, and that is strictly about the Lord and what you believe in, regardless to what they do in their private life. You know, as long as your faith is still there, like that's all that matters.
Right.
So I think that's how we hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward 2017, I got the transplant. And I think literally within that first month, I'm trying to figure out how to get back on the court.
Right.
But at the time, I call him, I'm out of shape. I got so many steroids pumped in my body. I'm super fat just from the steroids alone.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know, Will, you think I'm gonna come back? I think I'm gonna come back.
Remember, I told you just come.
Yeah.
Just come to practice. Come to workout.
And
You never know. Just come see what you can do.
yeah, and so, you know, from that point on, I started working out. And then as I started getting more and more in shape, I felt like my respect wasn't there. And like, you know, I dealt with a lot of bullshit coaches in my career. And so like, you know, Will was always the voice and reason and to just keep going and not really trip off what the coach talking about. Like, it's going to be what it's going to be. So I just started training twice a day, changing my diet up, eating better, resting, getting a good adequate rest, making sure, you know, I was going to get my checkups because I had to go see the transplant doctor every week, you know, in San Francisco. So that was a journey within itself. And then like eventually I started slimming down and getting back to it. And then I came back the same year, 2017, to start playing ABA basketball again. And I remember my first game back, I was still overweight, but I was working on it. I was able to move a little bit. And we were close to like maybe playoff time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I came back. And the first game back was playing against you, Brian Goins, you.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Head.
Yeah. That team,
D'Angelo, yeah. So it's a loaded team. And so from that point on, I'm like, okay, you know, they bullies and they gonna try to, you know, dog us because I felt like the team that I was on just wasn't that good. And so the game had a couple heated moments where like my aggression and frustration got the best of me because I knew what I could contribute. Yeah, and like granted, I made a few shots here and there and I did a couple of things good, but it was just the realization that I knew we weren't gonna win and that, you know, eyes were on me because, you know, I come back and I'm out of shape, but they don't know I just had a kidney transplant. They don't know a lot of stuff.
They just know you.
Yeah. And so, just showing that hustle and grit and showing that I'm, you know, I know what I can be. The coach, owner from the San Francisco City Cats was in there. And they were getting ready to have their inaugural season the next season. And so he invited me to the workouts and I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling my situation. I want to go where if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be able to be represented. I'm going to be in a good space. Yeah. And so with that being said, I started going to the workouts. I started to get in shape. I was in shape. I played with them for like up until like the second game. They had a coach on their team, rest in peace, Doc Holliday. Me and him just didn't get along. We didn't get along. I was busting my ass in practice so I could be seen.
Right.
And I felt like no matter what I did, even against the players that he favored it, he still wasn't trying to show no love.
Right.
And so fast forward.
So let me ask you real quick. Did you question at all any of your abilities? Because I know you were still working back at that time. So did you question any of your abilities to play because of that? Or did you just think of it as like, I just need another situation?
No, I just think that I knew that I was going to come back and be better than I was before because I'll be at full health. My first 2 seasons of ABA, I was sick. And so, you know, with that being said, I mean, that came with its ups and downs, muscle cramps, muscle spasms all the time because I'm getting all this fluid pulled off my body and I'm trying to hydrate and still go to dialysis in the morning and then go to practice right after. Like I was I was tired, but like you say, like that mental toughness and desire to just keep going and going and going, and like I was willing to play the game even if it killed me. If I passed out on that floor, I was doing what I love.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it. But back to talking about the team, like I felt like that the marketing was on point. They was actually trying to get people overseas, and I'm like, at this point, that's the only next step that can go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Overseas,
Because
yeah.
I was NBA draft eligible in 2012, so that shit went out the window.
Right.
Because
It's
I was still going through it.
It's a
Yeah.
whole another series of events going on.
Yeah, and so like I got with the team, the stuff happened with Doc, and so I'm like, you know what? I'd rather go back where I was at least getting the respect. You know what I mean? For me, it don't matter whether I start or I come off the bench. I mean, I'm still gonna produce what I produce. Like
Right.
it doesn't change anything. And so we played. No, then you left. You left the Town Hawks because you ended up playing with us when we played the City Cats.
Yeah.
And so the City Cats at the time, this was going into like the second year. They at the time they was like #1 in the country. They was undefeated, so their head was pretty big. And so like I'll never forget that game because we was the first team to ever beat them. And like
Oh, I remember. I still got the videos.
and you know that game was meant so much to me because one, we were playing at Gateway in San Francisco. Doc Holliday was from San Francisco, and he got suspended a game because of whatever had happened. So when I seen him, he was in the crowd, so he had to watch the game. And so from that point on, I was like a lion licking his chops. Like I'm like, if I don't serve this game, I'm done.
Yeah, this is
I'm
it.
done. This
Yeah.
was I don't.
That was kind of like your make or break.
Yeah, that was like
okay.
a personal, a spiritual, personal.
Yeah,
It was
experience.
personal.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know, you gonna have to see this. And you know, my boy Cardell Butler, he played with them too. And so Cardell always believed in me, and he always knew, you know,
shout out Cardell.
Yeah, shout out Cardell, man.
Okay,
Like,
ballaholic.
I had the talent, so he like, hey, just do what you do, man. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm gonna do what I do. So I kind of like was laying the ball up hella slow in warm-ups. Like I wasn't really chilling because my mind was so locked in. I didn't want to express no energy. Just I was just ready to get going on the floor. And you know, I could hear him on the sideline. He don't look like he ready. He laying the ball up slow. Look at him. And
So it's just giving you more and more fuel, huh?
yeah. And so like during that game, like every shot, like I barely missed.
I remember.
I barely missed.
I remember.
I think I finished the game with like 27, somewhere around
Yeah,
there.
that was a really big game for us, just because for both of us, I could just remember like we both were still trying to find that love and keep that love because we were going through, you know, like you said, the lack of respect, you know, for our game at certain points. And so it's like you're trying to maintain that love and so get that high, even if it's not a championship, to take down the #1 team in the country on their court, you know what I mean?
Undefeated.
Yeah, like that does something for you. Especially like you said, coming back, like you were, like nobody knew you were sick. Nobody knew, you know, you were fighting, you know, literally fighting for your life so that you just could lace them up again. So now that we've covered that, I just want to kind of talk about like the next step. So now you're playing overseas basketball. So talk about that. Like, what was the overseas life like? How did we get to overseas? Like, tell me about it. Like, let's get into it. Like,
so I will say, you know, I thank, you know, Ivan Davis for just even giving me the opportunity to keep playing on that team, you know, to be one of the people to spearhead us in the right direction. You know, we had DQ, we had Tawan, we had you, we had a couple of pieces, and like we just needed more. We just needed a little bit more. But
we needed a bit.
yeah,
that's all we
yeah.
needed.
And I just felt like, you know, with him giving me that role, that starting role, it gave me a lot of confidence.
Right.
And so I felt like even though we didn't have the best season, we beat the City Cats.
Right.
And
I think we woke a lot of people up that season.
we did.
I think we got a lot of people's attention.
Because there were so many other teams and like other people from different organizations that were there watching that game.
Right.
And so with that being said, I felt like throughout that season, I had a great season. from that point on. And I think that propelled me to get to the position that I had got overseas. And so with that, I was playing for a team called the Tucanes. That's in Mexico. They're located in Cabo San Lucas. And that first year we had like it was COVID, so we did like a bubble thing, and we won the chip in the bubble, and that was just like a solidified that was a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
Like I felt like where we come from, like if you any ounce of good, like you're under the microscope all the time.
Yeah.
If you're working out,
even if the people in your neighborhood know you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like you hooping and like at a local gym, like the jealous ones always envy, and I feel like I've always got a lot of back talk because people always felt like, oh, all he do is this, all he do is that, and it's like people don't understand that certain shit you do at one level you can't do at the next.
Right.
And like I felt like my first game, I found my spots and I stuck to what I knew, and I felt like that's what made me an asset to continue my career over there. Yeah. And so with that being
said, playing your role.
Yeah. And so I played it so well, we kept winning. And so from that point, from that first season, that led on to we're going on what 5-6 years now with this same team. I've traveled to the Dominican Republic to play in the United Cup. That was a different type of style of basketball, and I didn't have the best outcome. I did have some highlights, but I didn't have the best outcome because you're dealing with different coaching systems, you're dealing with certain speeds of the game and different types of players.
So would you say that there's some language and basketball barriers when you do go over and play like with different organizations or whatever overseas?
I think it is, but
obviously there's a language barrier, but do you think there's, from the sense of like the way we play the game and the way they play the game, do you think there's like a block there that says, okay, they're not understanding this, so they're only playing one way because this is all they know?
Well, I feel like in certain places, except for like, I feel like only certain places is like China or like Euro Top League. Like, I feel like we have the one up on a lot of different shit. Like our style is different. What we bring to the table, the way we dribble, the way we do certain things, like they don't have that. It's very, I would say the Dominican Republic was the first place that I've been to where everything is very, very like organized. Like they're running in transition, they grabbing rebounds, they playing defense. Like it's very fundamentally sound. Like there's nothing extra going on other than basketball. Like they're sticking to it, and like that shit's hard to beat sometimes when you got a group who's so used to playing one way, and then you go out here and they, you know what I mean? It's just like the saying that people say, you know what I mean? Like Caucasian people in like Seattle and shit like that. Like you could be going down there doing all the fancy shit, but they still in the game. Like it's still 12-12.
Right.
It's like they not even working that hard because they're playing fundamentally sound. They setting screens, they rolling off the back doors, they pick and pop, you know what I mean? Like they're just playing the game. It's just coming to them. And so as far as the language barrier, yeah, I think it's always a language barrier, but the biggest part that I feel like a lot of people don't have is the professionalism part of it. Being a people's person, adapting to the people, wanting to learn, wanting to engage with people. I feel like that's what carried me a long way. Like I have a crazy fan base, like from Cabo to Oaxaca to Veracruz, Cayutla. Like I've been all these places, and I've played in all these different arenas and courts, and you know, just to get the love that I get, it's like unreal. You know what I mean? But like that comes with always taking a bunch of pictures, giving away a bunch of shoes. I know you see that.
Yeah. So do you think, or how do you feel now, like seeing what you went through? Let's go 8-9 years ago. Like 9 years ago, Frank, and then current age Frank. Because now, not only are you hooping and overseas, you know, you're a DJ now, you know what I mean, you got a clothing brand, you know what I mean, like giving back, you're coaching on top of that, you know what I mean. So explain, like, if you were to look at this year's version of Frank compared to the Frank that you knew 9 years ago, would you believe that you can make it to this point?
I think I would make it, but I think in the weirdest way, because I should be giving me chills just thinking about it. Like, I feel like in the weirdest way, God humbled me. Because I feel like if I would have got the opportunities that I would have got at the peak of where I was at, I would have been wild. I would have been wild as fuck. Like,
basically, your situation now.
Yeah. And you know, it, when people say, you know, I was in a dark place, like, I was really in a dark place.
Yeah.
Like, I was really in a dark place. Like, the mental aspect of just wanting somebody to actually give a fuck about you. I think that was the hardest thing for me. Like, I only found happiness in my child. Me and my daughter's mother was in turmoil. We never got along. You know what I mean? Me and my mom got to a point where she started doing heroin. And you know, to see that, to see her break at the age she was at, like, what the fuck is going on?
Especially with everything you had going on.
Yeah.
So, my last question for you is, what's one thing that you can honestly say to anybody that's watching, anybody that may be feeling like some of the same feelings that you may have felt during that time? What would you give them as advice to keep that love for the game?
I would say, because I normally don't have shit to say, like, it's literally, you know what I mean? But I think as I mature older, like, I'm seeing shit differently now from a different lens. And every year I'm adjusting my lens to something different. And, like, I would say, the simplest form, like, go get it. Like, I feel like people make a lot of excuses for shit that, you know, sometimes certain things can't be controlled. But you can control only what you can control. And you can't always look for gratification or look for somebody to say, oh, you this, you good, you this, you that. Sometimes you got to be that third person in your mind and speak to yourself, because there's a certain level of driven you have to be about this shit. Like, hoop is, I'm 37 now, and I'm still able to keep up and do what I'm doing, you know what I mean? And trying to have this longevity in what I'm doing. Comes with just having the work ethic. Like, your work ethic determines everything about your career, period. I wasn't the most person always in the gym lifting weights all fucking day, but I would get on that court for 5-6 hours and run straight and do what I do. But I think to be the complete package, I think implementation of everything, from the way that you talk, the way that you carry yourself, the way you're strict about your schedule, your diet, how you work, having a legit circle around you that's gonna push you, that you can trust when they say certain shit, it don't come off wrong. You just know that it's coming from a point of motivation. Me and him have been in the gym 2-3 in the morning with Coach Dave, and you know, we will be shooting until we can't shoot no more. And so I knew that was something that I did well. And so my goal into being, I'm like, if I'm going to do something, I have to make sure that I'm really working at it every day. And shooting was something that I enjoy doing, to the point where now, if somebody is to guard me now and somebody know me, hey, he's a shooter, like, don't leave him open. And, like, you know, all you can do is shoot, so what? Like, sometimes coaches just look for that one thing that you can do good. Find that thing that you do good and build around it and keep pouring into it, and then pour into everything else around it. You know what I mean? That's what makes you a complete player. But I would say, like, stay motivated. Like, stay motivated and have fun with the game. I feel like once you stop loving it, you know, that's the craziest part, because I didn't have moments where I felt like I would have a bad month or I have a bad week. Fuck, I can't get right. I can't knock shit down. I'm getting occupied.
I think that's what every hooper goes through.
Yeah, but it's
that's like the wave of it.
But it's like you shake it off, because then you know what I mean? It's like, damn. But right now, like, my daughter's 15. She's about to enter her sophomore year of high school. I'm really focusing on being here more for her and doing more for her, and then, you know, things that I love on outside of hoop, like DJing, and fashion. And DJing has been toppled over by you know, everything else. Like, that's all I really do. Like, if I'm not hooping, I'm DJing. But, like, DJing has put me in a different realm of business from a business aspect that I would far more see other than with basketball opportunities that came my way.
Yeah.
I'm not in the NBA, so certain things are, limitless, but I feel like with this DJing thing that I'm doing, I've been doing it for 6 months, 7 months, and I've got more accomplished and more business partnerships than the average person that's been DJing for 10 years. I recently just signed with Jack Daniels, and we have a partnership going, and Tony, she's been pushing me and putting me in rooms that I could never see myself in, and it's been working. And as long as I'm sticking to the script, we work together, and we do what we do. But I've been able to gain these partnerships by just my professionalism and knowing how to adjust to different crowds, and just being me.
Right.
And so I'm content with doing what I'm doing now. And I'm coaching as well. I'm coaching a women's professional team here in the Bay Area. It's a women's league called the WPBA, which is Women's Premier Basketball Association. It's put on by one of my good friends, Fatima.
Shout out
Fatima. And what she's done has given an opportunity for all these women who are coming out of college or has been to the pros and played overseas, or is looking to go overseas, an opportunity to do that with this platform. It's through the summer, so it's a couple months, and everything is through Eurobasket. So they're getting their profiles created. These coaches are able to see them play, and
I didn't know that part. I knew they were, overseas and stuff, but I didn't know that they had the Eurobasket profile. So that's good.
Yeah, so everything is created on Eurobasket, so these coaches are able to go into these portals and see these women are playing and watching the games and stats and so on and so on. And there's been a high success rate.
We got to get her on for an interview now.
Yeah, Fatima for sure. For overseas opportunities. And I've been blessed to have women on my team who's been invited to WNBA camps, like Courtney Range is one of them. I have another player who's been playing professional overseas and plays in the women's night league with all the other WNBA players, Rebecca Harris, and then I got D1 players, D2 players, JC players, but we and overseas players that play overseas now. And so just doing that has also kept the flame burning, and I've been content with that too. And so that's still keeping me around basketball. I was just telling you yesterday, I hadn't played basketball in like 5 weeks, and I used to couldn't go 2 days. And so I'm starting to understand the responsibilities that I have and the directions I'm going. I have to kind of like veer my way slowly but surely out of it. You know what I mean? To a degree where I can focus on certain things. But I just been blessed. Things been working for me, so I'm not under any pressure. You know what I mean?
It's been another beautiful episode of Hoop Addicts Anonymous. I'm your boy Will. Like I said, you can find me on Twitter at 33_problems, on Instagram at thatguyprior33. This is Frank. You can find him on Instagram at where?
Struggle Made, STRUGGLED _35.
And the same thing for his merch. You can find that same thing where?
Struggle Made _merch. My DJ page is DJ SM _35.
There you go. It's been another episode. Talk to y'all soon. Peace. Love y'all.